as young people, what you're going through matters, and we want to make sure that you'll be okay. So today, I'm announcing our plan to support students right across the country. We're launching the Canada Emergency Student Benefit to provide immediate help. At the same time, we will create new student jobs and double student grants, among other things. All of these measures will add up to approximately $9 billion for students.
Big money there. There are millions of post-secondary students in Canada. This could apply to about 1.5 million Canadians. Their academic careers now upended by COVID-19. They're facing grim job prospects heading into the summer, of course. And while they're not eligible for the Canada Emergency Response Benefit, the CERB, financial support, as you just heard, is on the way. The Prime Minister announcing the Canada Emergency Student Benefit, $9 billion aid package to help Canadian students. But will the new measures support students in practical and effective ways? Let's talk about that with the Federal Employment and Workforce Development Minister, Carla Qualtrough. She joins us from Vancouver. I hope you and the family are well. Minister, good to have you back on the program. Students have been calling for financial support for weeks. Is the emergency student benefit and this entire aid package a response to the fact that they were falling through the cracks in the CERB, the Canadian Emergency Response Benefit?
Well, first of all, it's in response to the fact that we heard from how hard it is right now for students to find work, how worried they are, as was said, about the future, whether it be their studying or their career launching. And we really wanted to put forth a comprehensive package that didn't just give direct income support, but also responded to the calls for tuition support and increased loan amounts and perhaps larger grants, which is what we did. And also, what else can we help students do over the summer if they can't find work? And we're responding with our service opportunities.
Will part-time students be eligible?
Yes, they will.
Okay, you're offering this as a wage subsidy incentive for employers to hire summer students. Again, is that because the government expects to be reopened come June and July so these students can work? Like, is there also a kind of a model of a staggered opening of the economy built into the assumptions of this program?
Well, first of all, this is direct income support for students, so it's not a wage subsidy per se. As a different component of the package are increased job opportunities and funding for employers to hire students, but they're two different things. So the direct income support to students is $1,250 a month, plus an additional $500 if you have a disability or if you have dependents. But in addition, we are creating 116,000 new jobs or new employment opportunities for students as well.
Yeah, you said there's 76,000 new jobs. Can you give us a sense of what those jobs will be?
Well, we have a number of youth employment programs within the Government of Canada. So we have a youth employment strategy. We have work integrated learning. Effectively, it's just beefing up these programs for the summer, recognizing that there are employers out there who might want an intern, who might want a co-op student. We're going to focus on essential service providers, so healthcare, community service, volunteer organizations whose services are more in demand than ever, and really give them the opportunity to hire students.
But let me talk about those. A lot of it, the Prime Minister, and you're talking about volunteers. I think a lot of people said, why are we paying people who are ready to volunteer? And if you're paying them because they're going to volunteer on the front lines of the health, are they going to be given, I don't know, an adequate supply of PPE, adequate training to do what could be a dangerous job?
Well, that's some really important questions there. So first and foremost, of course, the health and safety of anyone who volunteers has to be at the forefront. And we would make sure through these organizations that the organizations themselves get the capacity they need, perhaps through other programs, to ensure that volunteers have PPE. The service piece of this is really a recognition that students don't want to be sitting around at home all summer. If they can't find a job, we're incentivizing them to go out and volunteer in their communities, get the work experience, learn the skills, get some training. And at the end of the summer, depending on the level of volunteer hours they've done, they'll get a corresponding level of grant or bursary from the Government of Canada.
Minister, let me just switch to a larger topic on the topic of helping business with aid packages. There's a lot of different packages. There's loans from the Business Development Bank of Canada, the Export Development Bank. Will your government prevent any companies who use tax havens or shell companies in tax havens from getting aid? Remember, the CRA last year had a report that Canadian companies didn't pay up to $11 billion, actually it was $11.5 billion, in tax because of tax havens back in 2014. So will you ensure that companies who are using tax havens will not get any aid in this time of crisis?
You know, we will definitely do our very best, Evan, to ensure that companies are not exploiting the system. But at the end of the day, the to and fro of this, quite frankly, is we need to get money to workers quickly. And while there won't be very many integrity measures built into the front, just like the CERB, at the back end, we'll be able to track down anyone who takes advantage of this, and CRA is adamant to us as ministers about their ability to do that. But as I said before, and as we know, generally speaking, Canadian businesses and Canadians writ large are honest people, and they are going to do their best to not take advantage of this.
Right. But I understand that, but this is different. It's perfectly legal to use tax havens. This is what the problem is. But your government has promised to crack down on tax havens.
Right.
So I guess this is a moment to do it. You want government aid, you're in trouble, get rid of those tax havens and apply. The CRA knows who they are. We're losing almost $12 billion a year plus. Why not make that a contingency on getting aid from taxpayers? It just seems crazy that we're going to help companies that they're trying to hide their tax.
It's definitely something to be considered, Evan, but I don't want it, and I wouldn't want it to get in the way of actually delivering money directly to workers as quickly as possible. And for me, that's about making sure that we have payroll information, that we can tell exactly who got paid what as quickly as we can, get that money back into the hands of these workers so that we can, again, get more people back into the job market.
Last question. As a workforce minister, I want to just ask you about meatpacking plants. You know, Cargill, the plant in Alberta, was closed, one of the biggest in the country. All across North America, there's concern that you can't have physical distancing in meatpacking. Are you concerned about those meatpacking plants for COVID-19 spread? And that could jeopardize Canada's meat supply.
Well, we're concerned writ large about our food supply chain absolutely right now in Canada. And we know that we have to put in place measures to ensure that workers, if possible, and to your point, sometimes it's not possible, but then we have to make sure people have the PPE. And if this means doing longer shifts, if this means having more shifts in a plant, we're exploring options across the board with companies, with different sectoral representation groups. What do you need? How can we help? The agriculture minister is working very closely on the agri-food file on this. And we're working just across the board to make this work for Canadians, because we can't have our food supply chain in jeopardy, and we can't have people not working in unsafe environments.
Yeah, okay, I got to leave it there. That's a really big issue we're following closely. Minister Qualtrough, I always appreciate your time. Thank you so much, Minister. Coming up on this program,